Hey there, film fans. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave.
And I'm John, and welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right. And to make this, to keep us positive, because we are a positive criticism podcast, all we do here is try to stay positive, and to ensure that we don't say anything negative, we make sure that you'll hear this sound.
Oh my God. It's a new year.
Oh my God, you're right. I got the yips. I went into the white room. I saw the white walls and lost all of my lines of dialogue here. We drink beer, we talk about movies, and we stay positive.
Yeah, so if you hear that sound, someone said something bad, they're drinking as punishment. So
oh my God.
Grab your shots, guys. I don't know if Jeff needs it. Everyone at home, pour yourselves a glass, because we're going to talk about a movie that could just as easily have been a Carnival Cruise documentary.
Seriously, dude.
Guys, I'm so excited to talk about my number 2 favorite movie of last year, and I hope I didn't set the bar too high for you guys. I'm very excited. I have this weird feeling that when I said this is the number 2 movie of the year, and then you saw it after that, I have a weird feeling you didn't agree. I don't know anything. You haven't given it anything away. But I have this weird feeling. I just feel it. I feel it in my bones, down my plums. Okay.
Down my plums.
We're talking about the Triangle of Sadness, people. Very, very excited to talk about the Palme d'Or winning Triangle of Sadness, starring Woody Harrelson, among others, written and directed by Ruben Östlund. We'll get to it soon. If you're desperate to get to us talking about the movie, go in the show notes. I'll put a timestamp. But while you're there, check out all of our socials. We would love to have Dave respond to everything you want to say. That's it. John, you want to give our sponsors a shout out?
Sure. We have some music on this podcast. Perhaps you've heard it at the beginning and end of every single episode. It's provided by the artist Dasein. That's Dasein, Dasein. You can head on over to all of your usual music platforms and follow that guy. Download the music for free, stream it, whatever you love to do. And we have a beer sponsor, Burić. You can find the handle in our link tree in our show notes. That is cburić.beer on Instagram if you want to give that guy a follow.
I must say, I'm
us
off,
as well. Like
I'm
us,
off the beer.
love us, comment on us, say thanks to Dave.
Yeah, I'm off the beer tonight.
Socials.
I'm off the beer tonight. I'm on the JMO and ginger.
Just JMO and ginger tonight.
Lord have mercy.
I'm gonna try this with JMO and ginger in case it goes wrong. I've got 2 of them.
Jesus. I was gonna say, are you preparing your bladder for sleep? Like you don't want to, but then you just have 2 very full glasses.
I just had to swap it around because I'm getting what we call in the home country as a beer gut. And I'm going to lose a little bit of weight in the new year. We'll see how it goes. Everyone watch this space.
I thought you did good last year.
Watch my face get thinner.
No one has ever made that New Year's resolution before. Let's see if it holds. I think that we should have recorded this episode on a gimbal with some rain splashing against the side with extra drinks just to see what would happen.
Can you describe to our fans what a gimbal is that you're talking about?
It's a piece of equipment. They make them for all sorts of things, but they're basically built to rotate with hydraulics. Anything on a large scale, like a stage. We use them in cameras and tripods and things like that.
They didn't film this on a boat, is what you're saying. They built it in a room, but they let the actors feel like they were getting nauseous by having the stage go rotate. That's pretty cool.
You should have seen the gimbal for the Dawn Treader in Narnia. It was huge.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they are magnificently large.
Yeah,
but yeah.
They took it down and put it on the mountain, basically on the cliff by the sea, and that's how they got the shots. The thing's rocking on a gimbal, but the sea's in the background.
Whoa, that's awesome.
It's called giant volume.
Jeez.
Yes.
guys, before we get into Triangle of Sadness, it is now the new year, and I finally looked ahead at the schedule that's coming out this year. This summer is going to be fucking insane.
Yeah.
This past year was fine. Well, so you have Fast 10.
Don't worry, Warner Brothers will cancel half theirs.
Even though that happened, yeah.
Just in June and July, you have the new Spider-Man Across the Spideyverse, June 2nd. Transformers, June 9th, which I don't know anybody that cares about that, but they still make a lot of money. And then The Flash is coming in June, as is the new Indiana Jones movie. So all of those are coming in June. And then I guess everybody's afraid of July 4th, even though July 4th is the middle of the week. They could easily come out July 7th, but I guess everybody's afraid of that. So they're waiting until the 14th. But
keep going. I was going to comment on a movie you made. You
July 14th, Mission Impossible finally is coming out after years and years and years. And then
my sister's birthday. I have 2 things to celebrate that day.
Fuck yeah. And then July 21st, Barbie and Oppenheimer are both coming out on the same day.
Oh, that fight's going to be fierce.
Both of their campaigns have been wild up to this point, but they're both
true.
slated to come out July 21st. Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Gender is going to play into the demographics.
This is not the same thing as Avatar and Mamma Mia coming out on the same day, though. You know, this is a little different.
Yeah,
and then
I want to see them both. We might have to do a 2-show weekend.
And then on July
We're doing
28th,
Barbie second.
still in July. Yeah, that'd be, still in July.
Still in July.
Apparently, Barbie's a cinematic masterpiece. Is the words coming out? I don't know who's actually seen it. Maybe the person who made the trailer. I don't know. And then The Marvels comes out July 28th. John, that is a Captain Marvel sequel. I know that it's confusing with all the different Marvel things here. But so that's just June and July. All of those movies I said are just those 2 months, and that's not even with July 4th. So basically 7 weekends. That's all those movies are coming out.
Wow.
And then Aquaman comes out on Christmas. But anyway,
we'll see.
Let's see what happens, because I think this was the year of the dramas for me, 2022. Maybe we're going back to those gigantic tentpole franchise things like that, and for this coming year, because I feel like there weren't as many blockbusters in 22 that were really worth talking about, which is why things like Top Gun stood out so much.
It definitely made Marvel rethink a few things, that's for sure.
Yeah, their CEO.
And obviously DC, yeah.
All right. Lie. I am excited. I just wanted to make this comment.
Sure.
I am excited to see the Indiana Jones movie just because the only James Mangold is directing. And I love every movie he's ever made.
He really specializes in like superhero retirement films.
He does. I mean, Logan, right?
He rocked Logan.
He was nominated for an Oscar for one.
And,
so yeah.
Yeah. And I'm very curious. I'm curious to see that as well because of the technology they've used. Because they didn't do the traditional face mapping for some of the younger sequences. They developed a new technique.
Anyone who likes Walk the Line, Copland, Ford versus Ferrari. I mean, serious director.
I love all them. I hope Harrison Ford has a little bit more energy than he had in that Star Wars when he made the rounds for Star Wars.
I don't think he wanted, or even in the movie, and I don't think he really wanted to be there. I think from what we've seen in the trailer, I think he's having fun in this one. It looks like
that's what it looks like.
It looks like everyone's having fun in this. There's even a couple of the side jokes, like the side jokes in the trailer. I'm sure there's going to be like shout outs all over the place.
The whip thing. Yeah.
Anyway, the marketing is going to be crazy for these because you don't get a second week bump. Everything's going to go down, obviously, but like if you're not around the weekend of The Flash, Indiana Jones is the next weekend. You know what I mean? Like if you're not there for Mission Impossible, if you're gone July 14th, then you have to watch Mission Impossible, Barbie, and Oppenheimer on the same weekend. You know what I mean? So like, guys, get your weekend. Get your A-list, get your movie pass ahead of time because this is a very expensive summer otherwise. All right. Yeah. Let's go ahead and segue into our favorite segment, our gripes of the week. Again, people, if you want to get to Triangle of Sadness and that's the only reason you're here, you can go into the show notes. I'll actually put in the time this time so you can jump ahead. But this is our lives, people. This is the shit that we're dealing with. We got to get it off our chest. So my friends.
Or if you're in YouTube, it's right down here. We've like altered the timeline so you can click in chapters.
Oh, you're doing the social media thing where you point to... I'm trying.
Yeah,
that's not
do it.
It's down here.
All right. Who's got a gripe of the week today? Dave, of course you do.
Over there,
Dave,
Mr. Green.
Set that gripe timer for 1 minute and let a rip.
All right. I want to talk about excessive run times.
Okay.
What
it's bound to happen.
Fuck, man?
You didn't even see Babylon.
No, I didn't. You know why I didn't see Babylon? Because I only had like 4 spare hours today, and it would have taken me 5.5 fucking hours to go and watch that movie. You got 40 minutes there on the train. It's half-hour pre-show, 3.5-hour fucking movie, and a 40-minute trip back. It's a day trip to see a movie. Yeah. Like if I'm going to spend that much time and take a day to watch a movie, fucking make it worth it.
I'm with you.
Ouch.
It's just the truth.
It's not the theater, dude. It's like, I mean, it's not live theater. Well, it's a film.
It's just, I'm conflicted because there were so many long movies this year and a lot of them were really good, but they all were quite long.
Yeah.
And it's interesting seeing history repeat itself because when television came out in the 50s and 60s, the film industry was like, oh shit, how do we compete against that? We make gigantic, very long spectacles to get people back in the theater to prove to them you can't get this on your little black and white square. And this year has kind of felt like a similar kind of answer. Like we're going to show you very long, epic, cinematic kind of, told stories, and Babylon is a perfect example. And unfortunately, I think that movie came out in like just a really rough release period, and it was one of the last super long movies to come out. But we have now put this off 2 weeks in a row, just because 2 out of 3 of us kind of were like, I'm not ready, and I don't have the time to go see that yet. That sucks.
I heard something once that movies are always made for the time they come out in. Now we've all heard the expression that movies are ahead of their time, and I think that's true. Some movies age really well, but Babylon is clearly trying to remind you of that epic, that feel of when, you know, obviously there's no intermission anymore, but like that feel of when you were in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and you just went to these 3-hour movies and that was your whole day. That's just not the time that's not the time we live in. So anyway, we'll talk about Babylon some other time. But
yeah, you got a whole about 50% of the world is like watching 30-second TikTok videos, and then they want to go see a 3-hour movie. It's like, you've really limited your audience.
That reminds you of movies in the 20s.
Yeah.
We're talking about a 2 hour and 27-minute movie today. So,
That's right.
I mean,
you know,
yeah, it's just one of those years.
Sorry, John, do you have a gripe?
I actually don't have a gripe. So hit me with your.
All right.
Hit me with your complaint.
Okay. So look, high school kids are having sex in Euphoria. They're having sex in Gossip Girl. We're seeing nudity. We're hearing words. We're hearing curse words everywhere. So autocorrect. It is time. Get on board. We curse. I spelled motherfucker with an I. Don't gush me. Turn that shit off. I spelled motherfucker with an I. So mitherfucker. And I was like, that's not right. So I highlight the word and it went, nope, no suggestions. Really? You got nothing for me? Nothing in mitherfucker? Like even like ducking, at least that's a real word, even though you know. But we had fun with it. But
yeah,
you have no suggestions for mitherfucker? Nothing? Not at all? I mean,
isn't it supposed to learn it as well? It's supposed to learn your habits.
It's time. Fuck is you know what I'm trying to say. If I say fick, maybe is that a word? I don't know if that's a word. But if I accidentally say a word, I get it. That's confusing. If and of is, I don't know how to correct that. Just please guide me to motherfucking. Listen to this podcast. You're listening right now. You know I say motherfucking a lot. Just it's an O, and you know it. God damn it.
Pretty much the only person that does it more is Samuel L. Jackson.
Hey, quit ducking around. Anyway, it's time. We're ready for it. At least you set a gauge. Are you 18? Can I correct these words? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, cool. We're good. We're better than that.
Take the chains off, Siri.
All right. Are you guys ready to talk about the Triangle of Sadness?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. There's no the. There's no the. It's my favorite movie. It's my second favorite movie of the year last year, and I already mispronounced the title. Go. Yeah. Okay. So as I said before, this is directed and written by Ruben Östlund, who recently won the Palme d'Or for this here film in 2022. He also won the Palme d'Or for The Square, which also takes place, I think, in the world of fashion, right? High art, I should say, in 2017. And then Force Majeure, the infamous 2014 film about a father and his wife and 2 kids. And as an avalanche comes, the man runs and doesn't try to protect his family. They all live, and shit just gets awkward. So...
That's got to be the best summary of that movie I've ever heard.
That's it. That's it. That happens.
Is ruined.
That happens pretty quick in that movie. And then there's just a lot of like, when are they going to talk about it kind of things, which I actually like in this movie here. I've read all the good reviews. I've read all the bad reviews. I'm very excited to hear your guys' mediocre reviews in 1 second here. But let's just set it up a little bit. This is a Swedish film, but it's spoken mostly in English. It's in 3 chapters. I'm not going to spoil the 3rd chapter quite yet. First chapter primarily takes place in the world of modeling. In urban modeling between specifically a male model and a group of male models. And then segues into one of those male models and his relationship with a very successful female model. So the 2 of them become modeling influencers after a very awkward conversation that I thought was really fun. And then we segue into part 2, which takes place largely on a yacht with some very, very, very wealthy characters, including a Russian oligarch, some older weapons manufacturers, some really socially awkward tech billionaires or whatever, and then a lady who is suffering from chronic fatigue, I think she has, and so she's wheelchair bound. And of course, Woody Harrelson.
She had a stroke.
Yep.
That's
I
why
saw
she's
this movie 2
wheelchair
weeks ago. Sorry, guys. And the captain of the ship is alcoholic Woody Harrelson, who tries very hard to not be seen in this movie as he hides out in his cabin until a now infamous scene erupts later in this act. And then the third act we'll get to in spoilers. That's it. That's the setup. So here I'm going to read the pitch, the IMDb pitch, and I'm just going to briefly go first because you know that I like this movie. So I'll just set it up really quick and say the IMDb description is a fashion model celebrity couple join an eventful cruise for the super rich. That's it. That's all they say. I love this movie a lot. I put it as my number 2. I understand that you guys wouldn't put it in your number 2 even after seeing it. I don't give a shit. I see it in your eyes. I see it in your eyes. I loved it. And for me, this is less about the ultra rich. This is less about the ultra rich part. This is less about the eat the rich. And it's way more about, to me, it was way more about the modeling and just obsession with people that are attractive, wanting to be around attractive people, want to be around our little cabal of wealthy, happy, fun people that are all important and so special. So less about just money in general and more about obsession with the way what we put on, what we want people to see us as, and just the comfy lifestyle we lead as we protect that's so near and dear in our hearts. And I loved the awkwardness. I loved the parts that weren't as quick and witty. I loved the things that seemed almost obvious. And I thought the journey was really, really fun to go on. And by the time I got to the third act and I was in a completely different movie, that's where the social satire part really hit me. And so that's what I want to say about it. You two, prove me wrong. Who wants to go? Don't jump at it.
He's expecting a fight. John, you want to go first? You go first.
Yeah, pick a fight.
Yeah, sure. I watched this a few nights ago with Elizabeth and her family, and we laughed a lot.
Okay, good.
Mostly, because you're exactly right. I only felt comfortable laughing in the second act, which is, I think you're supposed to. I think the other ones, whether you want to or not, you're very aware of the cringiness. The satire is more on its face. You're dealing with a social commentary directly with a lot of dialogue and stuff in the beginning section and the third section. So for me, the visual expression of that stuff in the second one on the yacht was the best part of the movie for me. I did enjoy all of it, and you're very aware, which is very difficult to do. Not difficult to do, but it's because you're dealing with satire, and you have an audience that is sitting in their head when they're watching this movie. They're thinking when they're watching this movie, especially if you know anything about this film and this filmmaker. You kind of know you're in for something. He's trying to tell you something, and so that's a challenge when you have an entire group of people who is kind of like, all right, what are you trying to say? And you can still entertain them and still get stuff by them. So the filmmaking is really beautiful. Beautiful is the word I would lead with first. It's very gorgeous filmmaking, which is, I found, unique in satire. The acting is very grounded and realistic while dealing with absurdist dialogue, I think, in a lot of places. Yeah. There are a few moments I definitely want to talk about later. Shit. I sell shit when he grabs the microphone. I mean, just that whole sequence when they are getting drunk and talking, I thought that was just absolute A+ writing and really, really fun filmmaking. Yeah, I think I'll stop there. And I will say that the line, there was some good planting along the way, but the thing that I kept thinking throughout in a fun way, because I felt like I was doing what the filmmaker wanted me to do, I kept repeating in my head as this story unfolded in a more cringy or absurd or disgusting way. I just kept saying, it's not about the money. It's not about the money. The first conversation they have in the movie, which is, I think that's good. You can know you're in good hands if somebody has a conversation that on the fucking nose. They're trying to tell you that we're not trying to be over your head here. Don't stop thinking about this when you watch this movie through the entire thing. And if you hold on to that, the final punctuation of this film is really unsettling. Literally the last two shots and the last edit, you're kind of like, ooh, like it's not, now we're not laughing. And this is kind of like, now it's fucked up. So I appreciated it a lot. And I absolutely can understand why the French ate this movie up. This has con written all over it. Just this style.
It has the French written all over it too.
If you like that kind of thing, I think you're going to be very, very satisfied. It's a strange film in a lot of fun ways.
All right, Dave.
I just want to say, for anyone who's worked on a ship, this is 100% accurate. Like right down to everything that happens in that infamous now Act 2. This movie eviscerates privilege, but it does it in such a clever way that it's not like heavy-handed. Like you establish that, like they establish that these people are like self-centered and stuff like that. But the theme all the way through the film is we're all equal, and it's very easy to say we're all equal when you're sitting at the top rung. Mm-hmm. But it turns that on its head in the third act, which I thought was a great little turn. And the first thing I thought when like the scene comes up and we're in Act 3. I was like, all right, now you're all equal. And then, of course, it developed, like it goes on to deal with a power structure that comes from everyone suddenly being equal and what develops from that. That's a bit ambiguous if you haven't seen the film, but you'll get it if you've seen the film. I thought this was great. I had so much, I laughed out loud twice in the first 5 minutes. Like that whole first argument, yeah, that's awkward. The first scene with all the models, it was like, because we've worked in, like I'm not a model. Anyone who watches YouTube can tell, but I've
wait till the end of 2023.
I've worked in amongst that industry and stuff like that, and yeah, there's a little touch of realism. It's not 100% it's stylized, obviously, but there's a little touch of realism there. The cruise ship stuff, spot on. And that then leads into the part that I'm not experienced with, which is what happens in the third act, which we'll talk about in spoilers. Yeah.
I don't know. You've watched Lost.
Yeah. I must say, I have stood at that angle on a deck before. But yeah, like, because I worked on a cruise ship, so I've like, I'm not even kidding, I've experienced some of this stuff. But from a filmmaker's point of view, like, this was beautifully shot. They used the camera to a really good advantage. They used the set to a really good advantage. They like everything was done really well. The dialogue was so clever, all the way through. Like there's only one or two cringes for me in this one. If anything, it lost a little bit of steam in the third act for me, where it just got
totally honest.
It just got a touch repetitive in the third act, but it then picks it back up real quick. But by that time, what's the boyfriend's name? Carl, sick to death of him by that point. I was just like, just can it with the shit, dude. Like, you're a horrible person. I did like in the dinner scene, though, where she's fully lit and he's hidden in darkness. Like, he lives in her shadow. And it's only when he leaned into her, he got light.
The very opening dinner scene.
A lot of the times they played with that, where he's in, like, shadow. He's not lit. He's just flat. Mm-hmm. And until he leans in close to her, he's not affected by the lighting. He just gets the ambient.
Man.
I love this.
Amazing. A little bit of context of the movie from Ruben Östlund. So he said 8 years ago in 2014, he came to Los Angeles. So I'm guessing this was on the force majeure journey. I don't know what he was doing exactly, but he was in Los Angeles and he met his now wife, who is a fashion photographer. And early on in their, he started asking about it. And she the first thing that caught his attention was she said that men get paid 1/4 what women get paid, which is mentioned in this movie. And he found that to be interesting. And then another thing that she said, which was interesting. Yes, finally, this is the one industry, right? The one industry. And then the next thing was this one story of this one male model who came out of nowhere, and it was this, just like what usually happens with women. Somebody on the street, hey, you should be a model, and he became huge in perfumes. And the perfume is special because you actually see their face, and they're not really wearing the clothes are hidden, so it's way more attention getting. You are the face of this brand as opposed to just wearing their clothes. People are meant to look at your body, not your face. But then he started losing his hair. And so his agent's like, I'll give you 2 years. You probably have 2 years left. So you should start looking for another job, or you should start dating a more famous female model right now to boost your status. And so that is what really led into this movie. So again, about the eating the rich stuff, Yes, I know that the director said that, and of course that stuff on the yacht is like you can't escape that. But this really did just come from that sort of like obsession with getting up to the top and being around the pretty people and making money off of it. Like I love the Beatles song "Rich Man," but the first line isn't "How does it feel to have a lot of money?" It's "How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people?" Because now that you have money, you're a beautiful person. And to me, that was like something that I like. I watermarked over every single shot in this movie.
I mean, they definitely like hammered on the fact that these are despicable people who are completely out of touch with humanity. Like they think, even when they think they're helping people, they're being an asshole.
Another thing that's really interesting too is they said clothes represent what we want to be seen as, right? So even like CEOs that wear T-shirts, they're like, oh, I'm just cool and normal. It's like, yeah, that's what you want us to believe. Like you could easily put a suit on, you know, but like you just want us to see you as that. You can't pretend like it wasn't a choice. Cheap brands like H&M, they tend to have smiles in their models. They tend to be laughing, having a good time. Expensive brands are serious. So we take our classism very seriously, but then the people on this yacht are all, they're not serious, even though they're the ones that can afford the luxury brands. So that's like the segue into this sort of obsession with classism that again, it really worked for me even before I knew all of that kind of stuff. And it's not as witty as I think some people would have liked, but it was guttural. I really felt even the boring scenes. Like, and so I think like the beach scene, I think one thing that was cool, and this was established early in that dinner scene, I think that dinner scene deserves a lot of credit because they're saying the same shit to each other over and over again, but they're really both just kind of narcissists in this moment. Like he's obviously chipping up on purpose, and I actually still don't know what her intention is, so good job on her. But you also just have to get used to things being boring, right? It's like not much is happening. They're talking and they're getting frustrated, but like not much is happening. So when you get to the third act, I didn't mind it getting a little slow because it was already told to me early on that part of this movie is like we just being okay with boredom and how it drives us crazy to be bored. And I don't know, I thought it worked for me just fine.
Nice.
Cool. Should we move into spoilers?
I want to ask some questions and
spoilers.
Spoilers.
I'll start off by saying that opening scene, not so much the modeling scene, because that I found that to be pretty entertaining, and you're not quite sure what movie you're watching yet.
Yeah.
But that dinner scene was the first time I really started noticing the editing style that it's kind of unavoidable in that scene. And then it did stay true in a lot of ways for the rest of the movie, how there's a lot of very basic kind of principles that you work with when you're editing. If you want to make people uncomfortable, you don't cut when the audience wants you to cut. You linger a little bit too long. You make them have to sit there on somebody's reaction as opposed to seeing the other person.
Yeah, off-screen dialogue is a must. Yeah.
So he almost exclusively in that first scene cut when you're not supposed to, according to like rules, quote unquote. And by doing that, it did kind of set up this very strange tone where you really weren't sure that boredom thing you're talking about, like. They didn't have a single line of dialogue in that conversation that everybody hasn't thought about before. There's nothing new in that conversation, and there was nothing new about the performances. So for me, it was mostly about why he chose to. He filmed it in a very simple way, even though I agree with you, Dave, with the light and stuff. He filmed it in a very simple way, but it was the way he showed you who was talking when and who was listening when, in a very it was so casual that this is what these people have to be upset about, is like this thing that everybody has kind of like maybe felt, if not had a conversation about. And I don't know, I thought it set up something interesting because there was almost like there was this conflict. I felt like almost like there was a conflict in the director of, I don't want this to be something that people. And a lot of times in satire, you're watching it and you're thinking, oh, that's so true. That's so true. And like you said, it's not super witty. Sometimes that comes through with wit. Sometimes it comes through with like surrealism. This really came through in mendacity in a lot of ways. And that was, I think for me, that was one reason why Act 2 was such a relief, was because I was so ready for them to be put in a scenario. The couple is the first one we're introduced to, the young couple, the model couple. I was ready for them to be put in an environment where people would have a different way of expressing that mendacity of having that kind of problem. And so you see them being introduced in like their influencing state. But when this movie goes away from the couple and starts to become much more of an ensemble piece, and you kind of get the upstairs, downstairs effects of the servants and the rich, It really opened up for me. But I wanted to ask you, because you made that comment last week about how you liked Act 3 so much. Is this why you found Act 3 so interesting? Because I did feel like in Act 3, again, kind of like it was almost like a return to Act 1. Nothing happened in Act 3 that I wasn't totally expecting. And there was something, except for the very, we can talk about the very last moment, of course, but generally speaking, that there was a huge role reversal and the rich were pretty much useless on an island where they had to fend for themselves. And a servant was now somebody who was extremely capable and had a lot of autonomy. I don't know. That was it didn't get interesting for me until there was a sexual dynamic brought into it.
Yeah,
until the sexual power became a part of the muck. Because otherwise, it was just like, of course, this would happen. Did you feel that at all, and is that what you appreciated about it?
Yeah.
What was it about?
Well, because so at the end of the dinner, they are literally throwing up caviar and lobster. Like it's as if like they're.
Oh yeah, we should. Anyone who's still listening who hasn't seen it, about an hour in, this thing turns into a spring break cruise, basically.
Oh, it's so great. There's a storm. It's Woody Harrelson's the only one that like isn't throwing up, it seems like, and everybody's just fucking. I mean, some of the most graphic throwing up. Apparently, people walked out of cans. The Russian guy, of course, the way they take over the microphone and stuff. But anyway, the rich are literally throwing up. Like all of their indulgences are gone, and then they get to this island and they're awash. So again, not anything too surprising.
So funny point about that scene, just quickly.
Yeah.
Apparently he edited that and he was like, he's watching it and editing and he's like, this is fine, this is great.
Can you imagine editing that?
Then they did a test screening and he's sitting there watching the audience reaction. He's like, oh fuck, this might have been too much. He actually apologized to the audience and it was too late to re-edit the movie.
Yeah, his first edit was, he said it was close to 3 hours and 40 minutes because he was like, he needed to know what worked to like go after and then cut the fat. So his first cut was like 3 hours and 40 minutes of this movie, knowing he was going to cut it. So anyway, it wasn't even just the fact that obviously they're useless without the servant, but there was just something about how they didn't even try.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
Like there were no stakes.
They didn't. All somebody needed to do is like, I'm gonna go. Let's go to the top of this. But also, it seemed pretty. It didn't seem that hard to find other people, that other civilization. They're like, we're gonna go for a walk and find people, and they found them. So like, they could have just found them on the first day. They didn't have to be fighting over this cabin with this woman and cheating on their spouse so that they could sleep with shelter if they just walked. Like, you know, so like obviously I didn't even put this in realism. It was so boring and mundane, but it was just, there was just something about how absurd and ridiculous it was.
Well, it sums it up perfectly when she says. It sums it up perfectly when she says it takes a lot of work to make a fire, and not one person goes, "Well, can you show me how?"
Right? Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
I guess it does take a lot of work to make a fire. So can you just go and make the fire?
Yeah, so that's what it was for me. It was like, it wasn't what was on the screen. It was the stuff that wasn't being on the screen that kept me going. It was what was written between the lines that I was feeling. I remember, I don't say that this episode, but I was on an edible that was stronger than I thought with my friends. But I was happy to see it with a friend. As John, you said you laughed a lot. We were really laughing a lot and stuff. But even in this, I was like, are you feeling what I'm feeling during? Like, it just feels strange. And my friend was very much rooting for the I forget what her name was, who becomes, what's her name? Who takes over? Who takes
Maria?
over? Is it Maria? He was very much rooting for her.
Her name.
But I was just like, I didn't ask like, why doesn't somebody step up and walk? But I was like, what the fuck is happening right now? Like, why is this so? Why am I in purgatory on this island? I don't know.
Excuse me. Abigail.
It's like they don't even have the sense to like get up off their ass and maybe explore a bit and see what is there.
And again, maybe this is too on the nose, but that Abigail's character never offers to show them how. She kind of covets it.
Yeah, she used it for power. Exactly. So she uses it for power.
Which, you know, if I'm being honest, like that was less interesting to me just because I was,
sure,
of course, you know, we're now in this position where she has a lot of power and let's see what happens. I did not expect the whole sexual reversal, her using the boy for.
Yeah.
I mean, I should have seen it coming, and I should have, you know, that could have been another thing where you're just like, of course that happened, but that really
hints
was
to the beach for me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there were hints, but I don't know, that started changing it, and the way that everybody was responding to it was really fun and off center for me. The whistles, and everybody was kind of giving them a hard time. Like, you could kind of do whatever you wanted as long as everybody survived. That was good. Yeah. And there was like this really, versus a dramatic, character-driven episodic show like Lost, where like everyone is constantly trying to grow from their obstacles. It was almost like they were just killing time.
And waiting to be rescued. Yeah, because someone's going to look for them. They're rich.
Somebody's
got That was, I love that was a thing, but it wasn't the main theme. Like the main theme was like that was there, but it was never really the main theme of it. Because it was like, this is what happens when you reduce to equals, and now the roles have swapped, and you're quite content to just assume that role and be looked after.
And they looked out of it. The whole mantra of capitalism is you can earn your way up to the top. Anybody can be successful if you work hard enough. And here are people who know what it's like to be successful, and they're not doing shit while they've probably spent most of their life telling people like, keep working hard. And now they're in a position where they need to rise to the top. They need to get on board with their reality, and they're doing nothing. I don't know. It just
did you laugh out loud when the weapons dealers met their end?
I mean, of course.
I said the line, literally her line, before she said it.
That's one of ours.
Is this one of ours? Did you
just when I saw the guns, the little pirate guns, like you didn't even see the pirate, you just saw the guns.
You hear the grenade pin get pulled, and then the guns come across the screen. It's just so classic. Did you guys feel this way? Because it was another thing that he kind of baited me early on, and I don't know if you felt the same way. I thought it was weird and cool and subversive that these very seemingly vain, really good-looking young models who we learn are influencers, and anyone who kind of knows about the modeling world nowadays, a lot of people aren't models the way you used to be a model.
Yeah, you can't just be a model anymore.
On Instagram, like they're really relying on their own brand to kind of push themselves forward. I thought it was interesting that
I love his description of an influencer.
Through a conversation that they tell each other the truth. Eventually, they do say the truth to each other, and they did continue telling each other the truth throughout it. And that these young influencers who were made to seem, and they were still doing their bullshit pictures on the cruise and everything, who were made to seem like they're fucking vain and shallow water, surface level people who were just have no substance and no real skill. They were the only people who kind of throughout the entire thing in all three different situations consistently said how they really felt to each other. I thought that was weird. I mean, they had the honest conversation about the sexual thing. Then they were not, I loved that they weren't the center protagonists on the boat, that they were kind of our vehicles for a lot of the other characters on the boat sequence. And I don't know. I just felt I thought that was weird. He put me in a very strange position, in an effective good. I'm saying this as a compliment, in a good position where I was ready to have a lot of judgment, that I thought he was going to build and build and build. And I was going to be ready to just see their destruction and to be like, see, fuck you. You're full of shit and your whole lifestyle is bullshit. And yet they kind of were one of the only ones who had humanity. This movie ends with him trying to tell her the truth, to save her. And I thought that was, I don't know, it did something to me after the fact. It was something that I thought about afterwards, not necessarily while I was watching it. Did you feel that way at all afterwards? Or
I felt like they were outsiders on the boat, even though everybody was obsessed with them because they were the young, attractive, hot couple. To the point where I'm surprised they said out loud, "We didn't pay for this." You know what I mean? I'm surprised they said this was free. Because we're all equal here in the sense that we all paid the same amount ish, and so we're all here. We all eat at the same time. We're all equal. But them, they didn't pay. So but again, everybody's obsessed with them because they stick out in the crowd. Nobody more so than, of course, a Russian oligarch.
He really doesn't. He's just worth. That's good commentary on his sexual transactional relationship at the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
He has really nothing other than
that's what it was with her.
Him to do. Yeah. What you give him for free.
Dave, what were you saying? You're about to jump in.
Nope, I've lost it.
Just about them and their. I don't know. That struck me. I thought that was interesting. So he kind of set me up for something different.
Wait, should I say now here? Did you look them up? Sorry, I can't talk. Did you look the two of them up? The two models?
Yeah, one of them.
Just on IMDb and stuff.
Yeah, I did research on her.
Yeah, what'd you find?
She died.
She passed away like a couple months ago.
Couple of weeks ago, I think.
Oh,
She passed away recently, yeah. Yeah, very suddenly. She was in New York.
Yeah, it was straight after the Cannes premiere, though. She was back in New York. They were about to go to Toronto, I think. And yeah, she got an infection.
It happened very fast. Woke up not feeling well. Her fiance, I think, it was also a male model. So her and her fiance in real life had a very similar relationship, I imagine, to this, where he's taking very provocative pictures of his significant other, and that they're influencers. So she had this. It was very meta for her, I'm sure. But yeah, she passed away.
Charlbi Dean.
Yeah, it's sad, right?
That sucks. Yeah, that's sad.
Okay, so the next element of this, back to classism, if there's a way to segue, you have your arms up. What were you going to say, John?
Whenever ready, I just do want to talk about the filmmaking of the second act, because I just thought it was.
Oh, I was going to talk about. I just wanted to know about what you thought about the communism and Marxism, like not about not about the philosophy behind it, but just about how they're talking on the loudspeaker. This Russian oligarch who's anti-communist, and Woody Harrelson, who's I'm not a communist, I'm a Marxist. There's a difference, and they're having this conversation. He's quoting Shakespeare and the Communist Manifesto, and he's just saying whatever the fuck he's saying, and they're just saying this while all this happening.
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic.
I loved, even before they get that wasted, when everybody else has left the dining room, so it's just the two of them, and they begin this conversation trading platitudes.
The quotes,
because he got to sit at the captain's table. Yeah, he paid to sit at the captain's table.
I thought it was just I was hoping it was going to end up being and it surpassed my expectations. The way they began interacting with each other with these quotes, this Russian oligarch and Woody Harrelson as the captain, just kind of goes to show you that, I don't know. Again, I thought it was really interesting that he allowed the capitalist oligarch pig man to be this person that we think we're supposed to be able to comfortably judge. By the way, I think he was my favorite actor in the movie. So
He's great.
I am a little biased for him, but I think you wanted to kind of find him repulsive. And yet he was the only one. He spoke his truth and seemed to actually have a life that backed it up. Whereas Woody Harrelson, I thought it was great that he was quoting all of these socialist, Marxist, he would say Marxist, not socialist, not communist, quotes and philosophy based on that kind of point of view. And it eventually builds in their ranting to him admitting that he doesn't actually live the truth that he says. So again, there was this very uncomfortable, frustrating irony for me that in a lot of ways, these fucking rich assholes are actually just doing exactly what they want to do. And we're fucking chumps sometimes for thinking that they're surface, they live their lives on the surface and are just getting a little pinch of the pie when they're actually laughing at all of us and doing exactly what they want. And I don't know if that's how everybody took it, but it kind of got gross for me. And then I just started getting a real kick out of how frustrated I was that they were getting so much out of each other. And then Woody Harrelson cracked and admitted, I'm living a fucking lie. And that guy was just having the time of his life, just being there with him while he was losing his mind. He kept giving him more the microphone. He kept saying, read it out loud. No, this is wonderful. Let's hear it. And he wasn't even making fun of him.
Dude, that kind of captain is how cruise ships end up on their side off the coast of Italy. He was fucking incompetent. There's this. They both sit. Him and the first officer are both sitting down there at dinner. I'm like, who the fuck's driving the ship during this storm?
So
I'm always wondering that. They have those dinners and stuff.
Also, it is a total monarchy on that boat. He is clearly drunk and wasted, and the first mate is like, "Excuse me, Captain." He's like, your captain has given you an order. Get the fuck out of here." It's like he didn't even come out of his room for 3 days. All right, talk about the filmmaking.
I like the use of audio a lot. There were several. I mean, each act had at least one scene where there was a grating noise, like the rear windscreen wiper, the flies, and then I don't know if it was the donkey making that noise in the forest, but whatever the fuck was making that noise. So I was like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, the sound grating is the right word. And again, it's another one of those things like. This is a out there in your face choice. It's not like we're picking up on these subtle things. Like it's a part of his commentary. It's in your face. It's supposed to bother you. You're supposed to be thinking, why am I hearing it so much? What's he doing?
Oh, and
what
the baby.
point is he trying to make?
As well.
And the baby, yeah.
Who the fuck took a baby on a luxury cruise? Like, honestly,
that was fantastic.
You've had a kid. Luxury cruises are not for you for the next 18 years. You're done.
But it's just, for me, it's a very simple idea. And I just thought his editing, his risk taking, and how they blocked, and their shamelessness of showing defecation and vomiting.
Yep.
Oh my God, the one woman who's in the bathroom.
Oh my God, the sliding. It's a very simple scenario, but it was just so effective to me that they set up with these breadcrumbs of, we probably shouldn't do it on Thursday. It's going to be rough weather. And the captain's just like, well, fuck it. They have to eat on Thursday. It's like nobody cares about anybody else.
Yeah.
And then they find themselves in this scenario where they're all dressed to the nines. So that there's, millions of dollars of clothes and jewelry in this room.
Sure.
And the captain is full of shit. All the cards are in the right place. And the boat is like just moving from side to side. The world is just falling down around them. And these people are trying so hard to hold it together. And again, just as bravo to the editing, you're laughing not because on its face it's happening to rich people and we fuck them, they're throwing up in their rich clothes. It's how much fun he had in creating almost like a suspense and payoff of everybody's breaking point.
Yeah.
To where you started to kind of, you felt like you were like you were seething a little bit. You started to feel a little maniacal, like they were actually in pain
but
for
yeah,
the last 15 minutes of it.
That's
and
the thing. In an interview, he actually
a little bit.
I got a little bit of sympathy, but in an interview, he said that was the whole point. It's like he wanted to push it so far that you started going, okay, they've been punished enough. Stop.
Yeah.
And to make you go to that place. I felt like I got there.
And you really had to. You can't get to that kind of payoff unless you
go hard,
really earn that and allow people to have fun, and then build it farther than you think it should go. And
that's where metaphor comes in, because they kept eating after they were throwing up.
They kept trying to drink more champagne to calm the storm inside their bellies. It was just that woman, that act, and the performances were magnificent in this. Like acting physical comedy, like it's physical comedy. I guess that's what we would call it, but it was so pedestrian. And just a lot of very single, steady shots on these people just trying to hold it together, and just watching them in their own rich person way think, this is how I'll do it, with caviar and champagne.
I know what's best. I can fix myself. Yeah.
Oh man, it was just so. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. It doesn't go to the Mel Brooks place of comedy where there's a chunk at the end of each of these moments. It's more disgusting,
continuous.
than that.
And I'm wondering, because they went so far, is that why I felt like the third act slowed down? Because it happened after that scene.
Maybe it was long.
Because that was like all hands on fucking deck. It was a mess, and then the toilets overflowed, which I've seen happen. That shit is real.
I think, Dave, you're right, and for better or for worse, maybe this is exactly what he wanted to do, to try to subvert what we thought was going to happen. But he took me to such a wonderful high. I felt high at the end of that scene. Yeah. The punctuation of it with the pirate attack was just so funny and so absurd. I thought we were going to get on that island. I did not see that
coming. I was like, the ship's going down in the storm. No.
Of course not. I thought we were going to get on that island, and I was ready for Lord of the Flies. I thought they were going to fucking tear each other to pieces. And I was so excited to see the absolute decline, that again, the malaise, just the casual come down. It was just so. And I was
actually expecting, like, he had me on such an edge. I was expecting them to kill the woman who took over, the server who took over. I was expecting them to kill her inadvertently, fighting for food or something, and just be fucked.
Something like that for sure.
Yeah. But instead,
let's. Should we talk about that ending?
Again, I liked that. I liked the amount of time they were on the island doing nothing, because then once they find people, it was like they could have found them the first fucking day. Like, it made me angry.
Yes,
I know. It's a lot of patience that it requires to get to that point.
I love the one person that found
Gummy's help, but
like the one person that found was the one who couldn't speak.
Yeah.
Like, she had no way to communicate that, like, we're trapped here. But also one gripe about that as well too, because her arm changed.
Oh, it's too bad. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. When she's on the wheelchair on the ship, it's her right arm. And when she tosses her the octopus, she catches it with the right arm and puts it in her mouth, and it goes to the left. So on the island, it swaps to the left. They fucked up.
Is it on purpose?
Shit.
Surely not. You can't. You
God, it
don't
makes me wonder if
spontaneously heal one side.
I know.
Makes me wonder if they like cross the line by accident and just reverse the shot in post. And they're like, oh shit! Hopefully nobody will
Maybe.
notice.
Yeah, no one will notice. Everyone notices these days.
What do you
And
think?
just to call it out, just to point out, because we had one of my co-hosts griped about it. You don't hit part 3, the island, until like an hour 47 into this movie.
Yeah.
You
And
have
that was
like 40 plus minutes left of something. You're not quite sure what's going to happen on this movie or on this island.
Like
but
this was borderline. It was, but of course I didn't I rented it at home, so I didn't have to have the
as a
extra
renter.
hour and the half hour pre-show and all that sort of thing to take up a heap of the day. I could just watch this 2.5 hours done. Great. Like I have no problem at all with that.
yeah.
But yeah.
What do you think the end?
But
is?
I did feel like it did drag a little in Act 3.
Yeah, totally. What does that mean? I think she actually killed her, but why? Why is that the ending? She got power and she doesn't want to give it up. Like this is just we're all destined to we get power.
She looks at the resort and realizes that when she goes back, she's a server again. So she's like,
did she go back to the main island and say we didn't find anything?
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what her plan was. Whether or not she carried it through though.
Right. But
To be honest, I was infuriated when this ended. But I think I was meant to be because this movie was never about reaching a conclusion. It doesn't matter what happened next. What matters was everything that had happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
Again, in that editing style and in just the whole general storytelling, I mean, I definitely agree with you. All 5 of us were like, that's the end. Like it definitely leaves you in a place where you're kind of like, he doesn't want you to think there's a bow on this. You're definitely supposed to do that. But Jeff, I mean, I agree with you, dude. There was a little bit of me that was like, of course that's her conflict. What else are you saying? Like no shit, she's considering it. Like what else are you saying? So that was way less interesting to me than the shot of him running.
I think if it had played out,
that really saved it for me.
I think if it had played out, she hit her with the rock.
Yeah, definitely.
Me too. But
again, they showed the back of her saying, I can help you. You can be my assistant. And she realizes, even now, then the highest she can elevate to is someone's assistant.
Yeah. So
and I feel like she would have clocked her.
And we're
wouldn't have worked.
Nitty gritty here, but
it took 84 hits to kill the donkey, so I'm pretty sure she's not going to have much luck.
I did think it was weird that with the sound, what they did with the sound editing in that shot of her walking toward her was they wanted you to know that her footsteps were making noise.
Yeah.
They cut to them a couple of times, and even when they weren't cutting to them, they kept them loud enough for you to feel like there's no way she's not hearing her walking up behind her. So that also made me wonder, is this going to be a scenario where we're supposed to believe that there's no way she could go through? I don't know. I kept waiting. I kept waiting for something like, I don't know. I don't know. Is this is the conflict that's been on this beach the entire act, and we've already answered this question 30 times. So what else are we going to learn from this? And even though the shot of him running there was something poetic about it. And even though it was a very simple understanding that he kind of was like, I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to say the truth or intervene. There was something that gave it some kind of life for me. There was something a little bit more kinetic. It was kind of surprising. It was one of the only surprising cuts and surprising moments on the beach that I really wasn't feeling like we're all kind of right with you as a storyteller, not right behind you the way a lot of people kind of want to live. But clearly it touched something for a lot of people. That close up of Abigail is really horrifying. I do again, filmmaking wise, you're having this conversation about how close do we want to get, what lens are we shooting with, and what do we want her to look like? What do we want you to feel? She's a human being. Even when she turns around and she grabs the rock, her intention is already, I could be a murderer and a monster. When she finally gets to her final position, she's a monster. She looks horrifying.
I mean,
huge,
the
long
sunken eye
lens.
sockets, everything. It was great.
Yeah, the wide lens, the face was just totally stretched. The eyes were so deep and they just looked like they were bending back. It was really, really unsettling. And I guess that's all you're supposed to think. It doesn't really matter. The point is that we all have that capacity.
Yeah.
you push us far enough, I guess we're going to be
And
there.
we're not going to want to go back. You give somebody a taste of the, you gave me $1 million. That'd be great. If I spend it all, I'm going to be probably start killing people with rocks.
And in that moment too, I did think back, and not only does she not want to go to this fucking resort and give up her power, she still hasn't talked about showing any of these people how to do what she does. So it's not just like she's kind of a big deal and a mentor. She doesn't want anyone to have.
Yeah, no, it's about like, again, it's like that absolute power corrupts, like absolutely. So like she's put in the position of power over these people, and suddenly finds herself wanting to maintain that. Like it's going to end. She doesn't want it to end. So it's basically, it's about human, like, and how easily people can be corrupted.
Who is y'all's favorite performer, actor? Did you have some standout or even a scene, or it doesn't have to be the entire actor? Any standouts for you?
The Russian oligarch for me was definitely.
I was laughing so
highlight.
much when he was on that microphone. He had earned that because for all the stuff we had seen, the stuff with him and his wife, and with just the weird relationships on top that he had said. Everything was very clear and specific, so that when he got on that microphone and just started spewing nonsense, it was so earned.
Yeah.
So Russia, MVP.
Yeah,
although I believe the Golden Globe nomination is for Amelia. She was nominated. We'll see if anything comes of that.
Amelia.
No, that's
Abigail. Whatever, I forget. Whatever
Abigail.
Abigail.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. She was also phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like she stole the entire third act of that movie.
Yeah, she did do well.
Just that, the look at her face when she's making the fire, looking at them, just seeing them to be the pathetic piece of shit that all service people on ships, all service people at restaurants think of the people they're serving, but can't actually get to. She gets to do it loudly and go, "You are worthless pieces of shit."
Yeah. Cool.
All right, folks. I guess that's it. We can wrap it up right there. Fantastic discussion. Let's go ahead and finish up our episode today with a quick round of what you've been watching, where we tell you our recommendations for the week. Dave, what you been watching?
I have caught the entire season of Witcher Blood Origin. It's a mini event series. I think it's only 4 episodes. Decent. It's pretty good.
It's The Witcher.
It's it's set like 1,000 years before or whatever when they created the first one. It deals with the creation of the first one. Yeah, it takes a couple of liberties, but it's still an entertaining watch. I couldn't not recommend it. And then I watched last night Matilda.
Did you saw it?
The film version of the musical. I'm not a fan of the musical per se, but as a film of this musical, fucking hell, man, where did they find that cast? Those kids are phenomenal.
I haven't seen the whole thing yet, but yeah.
No, it is like you only get to see them really like rock out in the last bit, and the sad part is I'd seen some of it in the trailer and I was waiting for that, so it was just like come on. But they have a couple of numbers where they're really good, but like that Revolting Children is definitely
sure
nice. I know I've seen more than this, but shout out to a food series, Somebody Feed Phil with Phil Rosenthal. I watched a bunch of that over this past week. Entertaining, funny travelogue kind of show. Old school, I watched Holiday with Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, directed by George Cukor. That was really lovely little screwball comedy. And I watched When Harry Met Sally.
It's so good.
Our New Year's movie.
Oh, dude, I nearly went to Cat's Deli the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sure. I'll have what she's having.
Yeah. They've got that seat marked, right? Have you been in there?
I know. I lived there for years, and I actually never went in there.
Okay, yeah, no. There's a sign hanging from the ceiling pointing out exactly which seat in the restaurant it is.
Good. So they reopened Cats because for a while they closed it.
Yeah, no, she's reopened.
That recipe was in my movie recipe book that we talked about last week. The recipe for the pastrami, right? Yeah.
Nice. How about you?
Okay. I watched. Did I say I blacked out when we did our end of the year episode? Did I say that I watched X?
No.
Oh, good. I watched X.
You probably did. We're all drunk.
But you did not watch Pearl?
No. I got a Showtime free trial, and then I forgot to cancel it, so now I have to pay for a fucking month of Showtime because I wanted to watch one goddamn movie.
Milk that thing.
Yeah, whatever. And then but I don't think Pearl's on Showtime, so I didn't see that. And then I watched some BoJack Horseman. I never really seen it before, but it's
really?
good. Yeah, shut up. You guys. BoJack's good, and so is Bob's Burgers. I was in an animation.
I love BoJack. I watched like 4 seasons of it.
Yeah, it's good. I liked it. I was listening to a Will Arnett podcast with our friend.
The opening sequence is just phenomenal.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Smartless.
Yeah.
You were listening to Smartless.
I was listening to Smartless. Yeah. So whatever. I listened to that and Bob's Burgers, and I saw The Little Mermaid on stage. It was great. Also, this podcast, Rachel Maddow presents Ultra, about all of the Americans who really wished that we were Nazis right before World War II. It's true. Really fun. We had a lot of Americans, that really wished we sided with the Nazis.
The coup attempt?
The actual amount would disturb you.
But it's not even, it's to say
crazy.
the coup attempt makes it seem singular. It's like there were all of these different groups that were trying to do different things.
One of them was featured in Amsterdam.
Shout out to Amsterdam.
One of them was featured in Amsterdam,
Somehow not the center of that movie.
Yeah, right?
Compelling story.
They just snuck that in at the end. You're like, what the fuck? The whole movie could have been about this. Turns out it was, but you didn't know that at the time.
What a shame. I've been wanting to see an excellent movie about that subject matter, that time period.
Oh, yeah. This podcast, you're going to listen to this podcast and be like, this would be a perfect miniseries. It would be perfect. It was,
Oh, it's a podcast. It's a podcast miniseries with Rachel Maddow.
So it's 8 episodes. It's 8 episodes, but they're all kind of little standalone things. Like one was about this father who was a priest who had 30 million followers, who literally was just hated Jews and just got people all over the country to like try, anyway. And then there was one that was a senator who was in a plane crash, and these other people that blew up these gunpowder. So they're all kind of standalones, but the stories all connect between like 1939 and 1941. But they literally were speaking speeches that were written by Nazis. Nazis handed them speeches and said, here you go, here's $1 million, read this speech and then distribute it in your newsletter. And they did. It's true. Americans in 1940, 1941. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm wondering if the Pearl Harbor thing, there's some weird Pearl Harbor stuff. I wonder if they did it on purpose so we can go against the Germans, because if we waited any longer, we might have joined the Germans.
And it's like those Nazis fought for that so that today's Nazis could support Kanye.
All right, I think we can wrap it up there. Thank you, Dave, for bringing us home with that nice button. Next week, we're talking about Megan. Very excited.
I'm very curious.
Maybe you two will see Babylon one of these fucking days before I forget it.
I promise you, I'll see it. I promise you.
Just carve out half your day and then go see it.
I mean, I do have the rest of the week off, so there's probably time.
All right, let's do it, people. I'm so excited. Maybe we'll do a twofer next week, and we love those twofers. We get nice and drunk with that second one, which is definitely going to be Babylon if we do two. For sure. Thank you as always. We'll see you next time.
Anybody donating a liver?
Fans. Get out of here.